The United States government has designated 8 criminal organizations as foreign terrorist organizations in 2025, and the Mexican military killed the leader of one of those organizations in February 2026. From the Sinaloa cartel tearing itself apart in an internal war, to the CJNG launching nationwide retaliation attacks across Mexico, from Los Zetas and their paramilitary origins, to the Gulf Cartel controlling smuggling corridors along the Texas border, and from Tren de Aragua spreading out of Venezuelan prisons across South America, to Carteles Unidos holding ground in Michoacán. The landscape of cartel power in 2026 is shifting faster and more violently than at any point in the last 2 decades. So let's break down the most dangerous cartels operating in 2026, and what makes each of them a threat, starting with the one that has been called the single most powerful drug trafficking organization in the Western Hemisphere. In January 2026, the Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel was linked to the kidnapping of 10 mine workers in a rural municipality in southern Sinaloa state. The same month, 37 suspects connected to cartel operations were extradited, part of a broader acceleration that saw 92 total transfers within a 12-month period. And then in February, a Sinaloa cartel leader was charged with narco-terrorism, material support of terrorism, and drug trafficking. All of this happened within weeks. This is the Sinaloa cartel in 2026, an organization that, despite losing leader after leader, refuses to stop operating. The Sinaloa cartel is a large and powerful drug trafficking, transnational organized crime syndicate based in Culiacán, Sinaloa, Mexico, that specializes in illegal drug trafficking and money laundering. The United States intelligence community considers the cartel to be the largest and most powerful drug trafficking organization in the world, perhaps more influential than Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel of Colombia during its prime. Founded in the late 1960s by Pedro Avilés Perez in Sinaloa, the cartel initially focused on smuggling cannabis into the United States. Perez is credited with pioneering the use of aircraft for drug smuggling, laying the groundwork for large-scale trafficking operations. That era was crude by today's standards: small planes, dirt runways, bags of marijuana. But it was the blueprint. The Guadalajara cartel was co-founded by Felix Gallardo between 1978 and 1980, marking the next phase in the cartel's history. Under Gallardo's leadership, the cartel controlled much of Mexico's drug trafficking corridors along the U.S. border throughout the 1980s. Then everything changed. The audacity of Mexican traffickers became evident in 1985, when they assassinated Enrique Camarena, an undercover U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration agent. Camarena's death represented the beginning of the end for the Guadalajara cartel. Pressure from the United States forced Mexican authorities to act, and its leaders fled the country. The remaining factions established bases in various parts of Mexico. Following Gallardo's arrest in 1989, the cartel splintered into smaller organizations, including the Sinaloa cartel. It was out of that wreckage that Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán and Ismael El Mayo Zambada consolidated their power. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, the Sinaloa cartel, under the leadership of figures like El Chapo, significantly expanded its operations, establishing itself as one of the most powerful and influential criminal organizations in the world. During this period, the Sinaloa cartel diversified its drug portfolio, becoming a major player in the global trade of cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, cannabis, and methamphetamine. It developed sophisticated trafficking networks spanning across the Americas, Europe, and Asia, utilizing methods such as underground tunnels, maritime shipments, and corrupt border officials to smuggle narcotics into the United States and other markets. And that sophistication wasn't just about logistics, it was about political insulation. The cartel also became known for its strategic alliances, brutal enforcement tactics, and the ability to infiltrate local governments and law enforcement agencies, particularly in key trafficking corridors, further solidifying its position as a dominant force in the drug trade. Its many factions forged connections at the highest levels of Mexico's federal police and military, and bribed members of both institutions to maintain an advantage over rival organizations. The Sinaloa cartel's operational footprint is immense. DEA has identified tens of thousands of Sinaloa members operating worldwide, in decentralized networks under the larger Sinaloa umbrella. DEA has investigated Sinaloa operations in at least 40 countries worldwide, and, with foreign counterparts, are investigating their expansion into lucrative markets such as Europe, Asia, and Australia. Inside the United States, their web stretches coast to coast. The Tucson and Phoenix, Arizona metropolitan areas are major transshipment and distribution points for the cartel in the U.S. To coordinate operations in the Southeast U.S., Atlanta has emerged as a major distribution center and accounting hub, and the presence of the Sinaloa cartel there has brought ruthless violence to that area. Chicago continues to be a major Sinaloa distribution point for the Midwest. Now, the organization's structure in 2026 is fundamentally different from what it was 5 years ago. The Sinaloa cartel has a federal structure that allows its factions and allies to maintain full operation autonomy and horizontal relations without a rigid hierarchy. Currently, the cartel comprises two main factions, both connected to the cartel's founding members. The faction led by El Chapo's sons, known as Los Chapitos, operates primarily in Sinaloa and has a strong presence in the municipality of Culiacan and on the Pacific coast of the state, as well as in Sonora and Baja California. The fracture that defines the cartel today started in July 2024. Mexican drug lord Ismael El Mayo Zambada was arrested at an airfield near El Paso, Texas, along with a son of his Sinaloa cartel partner, El Chapo. Zambada alleges Joaquin Guzman Lopez kidnapped him and turned him over to U.S. agents. That arrest detonated a civil war within the cartel. The rift has led to a spike in violence in the group's stronghold in Sinaloa, but it has also started to spread in territories controlled and disputed by the Sinaloa cartel, as other criminal groups seek to leverage the fracture for territorial expansion. The outbreak of clashes and attacks in September 2024 following El Mayo's arrest contributed to 2024 recording some of the highest levels of violence involving non-state armed groups in Mexico over the last 6 years. The Sinaloa cartel experienced intense internal fragmentation between the Los Chapitos faction and the faction aligned with El Mayo, producing sustained violence across Sinaloa and neighboring states. In April 2025, a Los Chapitos-linked cell attacked a drug rehabilitation center in Culiacan, killing 9 individuals. Subsequent clashes resulted in additional fatalities, with bodies displayed publicly to intimidate rivals and signal territorial control. Rather than collapse under enforcement pressure, the organization fractured into competing nodes, amplifying instability. As of 2026, the Chapitos, specifically Ivan Guzman Salazar and his brother Jesus Alfredo, continue to share leadership roles in the Sinaloa cartel and its fentanyl trafficking operations. The Chapitos and the Sinaloa cartel have reaped hundreds of millions of dollars in profits by flooding the United States with fentanyl. In July 2025, Ovidio Guzman Lopez pled guilty to 2 counts of drug conspiracy and 2 counts of knowingly engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise. As part of his plea agreement, Guzman Lopez admitted he and his brothers assumed their father's leadership role following his arrest. They used a network of couriers to smuggle drugs into the United States. Once distributed, they used various methods, like bulk cash shipments, wire transfers, trading goods, and even cryptocurrency, to launder the profits back to Mexico. Guzman Lopez also admitted to resorting to violence against law enforcement, civilians, and rival traffickers to protect the cartel's drug operations, and the violence extends beyond Mexico. In April 2026, federal authorities arrested 4 members of a Lancaster, California family for operating a Sinaloa cartel-linked drug and firearms trafficking ring in Los Angeles County. Federal authorities arrested 4 members of a Lancaster family for allegedly operating a Sinaloa cartel-linked drug and firearms trafficking ring in Los Angeles County. This is what the Sinaloa cartel looks like in 2026. Fractured at the top, but tentacles still reaching deep into American communities, still pumping fentanyl through every available corridor, still adapting. Last year, the Trump administration designated the Sinaloa cartel as both a foreign terrorist organization and a specially designated global terrorist. That designation means that anyone providing material support to the cartel faces criminal penalties, including up to life in prison if any death results. But whether the label changes anything on the ground remains to be seen, because the Sinaloa cartel has survived arrest after arrest, extradition after extradition, for over 50 years. On the morning of February 22, 2026, the landscape of Mexican organized crime changed. On 22nd of February 2026, the Mexican Armed Forces conducted an operation which killed El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, and 6 others in Tapalpa, Jalisco, Mexico. The operation sparked clashes in the area, resulting in shootouts, explosions, and multiple vehicles and stores being set on fire throughout the state and much of the rest of the country. The clashes resulted in dozens of casualties for both the National Guard and cartel members, as well as at least 1 civilian death. To understand the significance of that moment, you need to understand who El Mencho was and what the CJNG had become under his rule. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel is a key supplier of illicit fentanyl to the United States and one of Mexico's most powerful, influential, and ruthless transnational criminal organizations. As of 2025, CJNG is the main competitor to the Sinaloa cartel. The cartel's origins are chaotic. CJNG started in 2009 as one of the splits of the Milenio cartel, the other being La Resistencia. CJNG defeated La Resistencia and took control of Milenio's smuggling networks. CJNG expanded its operation network from coast to coast in 6 months, making it one of the criminal groups with the greatest operating capacity by 2012. Former police officer Nemesio Oseguera Ramos, alias El Mencho, was considered the leader and founder of the CJNG until he was killed on February 22, 2026, by Mexican security forces. His original top operators were Eric Valencia, alias L85, and Martin Arzola Ortega, alias L53. Under El Mencho's leadership, the CJNG built a machine of extraordinary scale. Like the Sinaloa cartel, CJNG reaps billions of dollars in profit from the manufacture of illegal synthetic drugs, as well as being one of the main suppliers of cocaine to the U.S. market. Under Osguera Cervantes' leadership, CJNG expanded its operations well beyond Mexico's borders, establishing a presence in over 40 countries. The cartel uses its vast financial resources, unique franchise-based command structure, proclivity for violence, and access to corrupt officials to maintain and expand its influence over Mexico's illicit drug trade. That franchise model is what sets the CJNG apart from other organizations. CJNG uses a franchise model, an affiliation agreement between smaller local cartels and CJNG, to facilitate expansion outside its strongholds in Jalisco, Nayarit, and Colima. Think of it like a criminal corporation offering brand licensing. Local gangs sign on under the CJNG umbrella, pay a percentage, and receive protection and supply chains in return. That's how the cartel spread across Mexico at a speed that stunned security analysts. The numbers are staggering. By 2018, the CJNG was believed to have over 100 methamphetamine labs throughout Mexico. Based on average street value, its trade could net upwards of $8 billion for cocaine and $4.6 billion for crystal meth each year. CJNG associates, facilitators, and affiliates operate in almost all 50 U.S. states. And the violence the CJNG wielded was not incidental. It was the core strategy. CJNG uses extreme violence and intimidating media to coerce local populations into cooperating with the group, overcome rival cartels and Mexican security forces, and exert control over the cartel's own members. CJNG also coerces or incentivizes local state and federal judges, prosecutors, politicians, and security forces to enable the group's activities and evade arrest. CJNG conducts public executions and displays the bodies, often publicizing these acts on social media or leaving threatening messages. The cartel has kidnapped and disappeared civilians, and it has attacked and assassinated Mexican politicians, judges, and law enforcement officers. The CJNG also pioneered a tactic that put them into a category shared with armed insurgencies. Cartels, particularly the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, have continued deploying explosive-laden drones, a tactic previously demonstrated in the October 2025 drone strike on a government facility in Tijuana. CJNG members shot down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade, killing 9 soldiers. In May 2025, CJNG escalated to insurgent-style IED warfare, destroying an armored vehicle and killing 8 Mexican security personnel. The conflict map tells you everything about their ambition. The CJNG are fighting the Nueva Plaza cartel for control of Guadalajara, La Unión Tepito for Mexico City, Los Viagras and La Familia Michoacana for the states of Michoacán and Guerrero, Los Zetas in the states of Veracruz and Puebla, Cartel del Noreste in Zacatecas, the Sinaloa cartel in Baja California, Sonora, Ciudad Juárez, Zacatecas and Chiapas, as well as the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel in Guanajuato. That's nearly every state in the country. That's not a cartel. That's a parallel state fighting on every front simultaneously. Now, the raid that killed El Mencho was a product of U.S.-Mexican intelligence cooperation. The operation was led by the Mexican Army with support from the National Guard, the Mexican Air Force, and intelligence personnel from the Attorney General's office. Mexican security forces coordinated with the United States Joint Interagency Task Force Counter Cartel, which provided intelligence support in the planning of the mission. The GITCC mapped cartel presence and provided intelligence on CJNG movements. The details of the operation itself were extraordinary. In the days immediately preceding the operation, military intelligence tracked the movements of a trusted associate connected to a romantic partner of Oseguera. On the 20th of February 2026, data from this surveillance indicated that the associate had transported the partner to a residence within the Tapalpa Country Club, an upscale gated residential development in Tapalpa, Jalisco, where Oseguera was believed to be staying. Security forces confirmed that the partner met with Oseguera at the property before departing on the 24th of February. On the 22nd of February 2026, after confirming Oseguera's presence, security forces initiated the raid on foot on the gated community in Tapalpa. The assault was aided by 2 military helicopters. As federal troops advanced toward the property, CJNG gunmen opened fire, triggering an intense exchange of gunfire in the surrounding mountainous terrain. Cartel members used high-caliber firearms and other heavy weaponry in an attempt to repel the assault. During the initial confrontation, several cartel members were killed and others wounded. As security forces moved to secure the compound, amid the firefight, Oseguera attempted to escape into the surrounding terrain with 4 members of his security detail. A team of Special Forces personnel split off and pursued him beyond the main structure, leading to a second armed confrontation in the nearby wooded area. What happened next sent shockwaves across all of Mexico. In the immediate aftermath of the operation, the CJNG launched coordinated retaliatory attacks across multiple states. Cartel members established approximately 250 roadblocks nationwide using hijacked cargo trucks, buses, and private vehicles that were set on fire to obstruct highways and urban roads. Incidents were reported in Jalisco and numerous other states, including Michoacán, Guanajuato, Colima, Tamaulipas, Zacatecas, Aguascalientes, and Sinaloa. In the Guadalajara metropolitan area alone, authorities confirmed at least 20 active blockade points on the 22nd of February. The killing of El Mencho is the most significant elimination of a cartel leader since Pablo Escobar, offering a major symbolic victory for the U.S. But the CJNG's response demonstrated that the organization's capacity for disruption didn't die with its leader. The CJNG was led by El Mencho until he was killed by the Mexican security forces on February 22, 2026. His death prompted dozens of blockades and disturbances in more than 20 Mexican states. So who runs the CJNG now? On 18 March 2026, the Wall Street Journal reported that Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, El Mencho's stepson through his marriage to Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, was now the CJNG's new leader. On 6 April 2026, El País confirmed Valencia Gonzalez becoming head of the CJNG, having successfully worked his way through the power vacuum created by El Mencho's death. He is the son of Armando Valencia Cornelia, known as Maradona, a former leader of the Millennium Cartel, and Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, who subsequently married Oseguera Cervantes. The fact that the new leader of Mexico's most feared cartel is a U.S. citizen only adds another layer to a situation already dripping with complexity. If the Sinaloa cartel and the CJNG represent the 2 superpowers of Mexican organized crime, then the organizations rooted in Northeast Mexico, the Gulf Cartel, Los Zetas, and their successor Cartel del Noreste, represent something different. A tradition of militarized violence that predates the current era by decades. Los Zetas is a fractured Mexican criminal syndicate and designated terrorist organization, known as one of the most dangerous of Mexico's drug cartels. They are known for engaging in brutally violent shock and awe tactics, such as beheadings, torture, and indiscriminate murder. Their backstory is unlike any other cartels. The origins of Los Zetas date back to the late 1990s, when commandos of the Mexican army deserted their ranks and began working as the enforcement arm of the Gulf Cartel. This criminal group began life in 1997 as a band of 31 former Mexican Special Forces operatives who deserted the military and joined the Gulf Cartel as their private militia. These were not street criminals who graduated into organized crime. These were trained soldiers, men who knew counterintelligence, knew weapons, knew how to move silently through terrain at night. The Drug Enforcement Administration described the Zetas as extremely technologically advanced and trained in paramilitary techniques. They are violent even compared to other cartels. In February 2010, Los Zetas broke away and formed their own criminal organization, rivaling the Gulf Cartel. And for a time, they became the largest cartel in Mexico by territory. They were at one point Mexico's largest and most expansive drug cartel in terms of geographical presence, overtaking their rivals, the Sinaloa Cartel, in physical territory. Since they struck out in 2002 after the original leader of the Gulf Cartel was arrested and sent to the U.S., the Zetas captured 405 Mexican municipalities and moved into Guatemala. But the Zetas' dominance was not built to last. However, since the mid-late 2010s, Los Zetas have become fragmented and seen their influence diminish, with most factions absorbed by their regional opposition or eliminated. Their successors, particularly the Cartel del Noreste, CDN, carry on their legacy. In Tamaulipas and parts of Nuevo León and Coahuila, although fragmented, the Zetas and Gulf Cartel's smaller offshoots, with their power struggles, continue to create a situation of extreme violence in their home state of Tamaulipas. As of 2025, the U.S. Department of State lists Tamaulipas with 5 more of Mexico's 31 states, with a level 4. Do not travel advisory. The Gulf Cartel, meanwhile, holds its own position in the hierarchy of threat. CDG is a violent transnational organization based in northeast Mexico, involved in drug trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, human smuggling, and other illicit activities. CDG employs violence, including assassinations of civilians and government officials, to intimidate the public and control territory. The Gulf Cartel was one of the 8 organizations designated as a foreign terrorist organization in February 2025, placing it in the same legal category as Al-Qaeda and ISIS under U.S. law. It has roots of the organization extending across several continents into West Africa, Central America, and South America. Both the CDN and the Gulf Cartel continue to fight over the profitable smuggling corridors along the Rio Grande and into Texas. Their wars with each other and their skirmishes with the CJNG keep the northeastern states of Mexico locked in a cycle of violence that has persisted for over 15 years. The region is a cautionary tale of what happens when former military discipline meets uncontrolled profit incentive. You get organizations that can fight like armies, govern like mafias, and terrorize like insurgencies all at once. The western Pacific coast state of Michoacán has become one of the most contested and violent territories in all of Mexico. The organizations fighting there, Carteles Unidos and La Nueva Familia Michoacana, may not have the global name recognition of the Sinaloa Cartel or the CJNG, but they are among the organizations that the U.S. government has classified as terrorist threats. CU is a violent transnational organization that formed from an alliance of multiple cartels and other groups in Michoacán, Mexico. Since its formation, CU has engaged in violent activities which have resulted in numerous civilian, military, and law enforcement casualties. Carteles Unidos is essentially a coalition, a defensive pact forged by smaller groups, including remnants of the Knights Templar and the Viagras, to resist the CJNG's expansion into Michoacán. Their alliance is born not of shared ideology but of shared survival. La Nueva Familia Michoacana, or LNFM, is the successor to one of Mexico's most infamous organizations. LNFM is the successor of the La Familia Michoacana, a violent transnational organization. Based in the Pacific Coast state of Michoacán, with operations in the Mexican states Guerrero, Morelos, and Mexico. In addition to drug trafficking, kidnapping, and extortion, LNFM attacks government officials and uses violence, including drone attacks and explosives, to exert its criminal control and terrorize communities. Both organizations were designated as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists by the U.S. State Department on February 20, 2025. Secretary Rubio identified as FTOs, SDGTs, 6 Mexico-based entities known for their role in a wide range of criminal activity, including illicit drug production and trafficking, and brutal tactics: the Sinaloa Cartel, CJNG Cartel del Noreste, Gulf Cartel, La Nueva Familia Michoacana, and Carteles Unidos. Michoacán is important because of what flows through it. The state sits on Mexico's Pacific coast, giving it access to port cities, where precursor chemicals from Asia arrive and where drugs are shipped northward. It is also the epicenter of Mexico's illegal avocado trade, a billion-dollar agricultural sector that cartels have infiltrated through extortion and violent control of farming communities. The battle between CJNG, Carteles Unidos, and LNFM is not just about drugs. It is about controlling every revenue stream in an entire region, from narcotics to agriculture to mining to fuel theft. Mexican cartels, particularly CJNG and Sinaloa, have intensified operations with mass casualty attacks, drone strikes, IEDs, and heavy weaponry, demonstrating a shift from traditional criminal activity to insurgent-style tactics that challenge state authority. Michoacán is where this transformation is most visible. The use of improvised explosive devices, weaponized drones, and coordinated highway shutdowns has turned entire municipalities into war zones. Civilians are caught between organizations that view collateral damage as an acceptable cost of maintaining or expanding territory. The fragmentation of cartel power in Michoacán means there is no single enemy for the government to target. Carteles Unidos is itself an alliance of factions, each with its own leader, territory, and interests. When one cell is dismantled, another fills the void. LNFM operates with the same decentralized resilience. The result is an ecosystem of violence where no single arrest or operation can shift the balance of power for long. For decades, when people talked about the most dangerous cartels in the world, they talked exclusively about Mexico. That is no longer the case. The February 2025 Foreign Terrorist Organization designations by the United States signaled a new reality. The threat now extends across the entire Western Hemisphere, and the organizations on the list come from Venezuela and Central America as well. TDA is a transnational organization that originated in Venezuela, with cells in Colombia, Peru, and Chile, with further reports of sporadic presence in Ecuador, Bolivia, and Brazil. This brutal criminal group has conducted kidnappings, extorted businesses, bribed public officials, authorized its members to attack and kill U.S. law enforcement, and assassinated a Venezuelan opposition figure. MS-13 is a transnational organization that originated in Los Angeles, but shifted to Central America as individuals were deported there from the United States. Tren de Aragua. The Aragua Train is a gang that was born inside the walls of Venezuela's Tocorón prison. Tren de Aragua is spread out over Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru. What started as a prison-based extortion racket has metastasized into a transnational network that engages in human trafficking, sex trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and drug smuggling across South America. Their designation alongside groups like the Sinaloa Cartel and the CJNG was a statement from the U.S. government that they now view these organizations through the same lens. MS-13, or Mara Salvatrucha, has a longer history in the American consciousness. Mara Salvatrucha has a presence in Central America, in particular Honduras and Guatemala. Originally formed by Salvadoran immigrants in Los Angeles in the 1980s, the gang was exported back to Central America through U.S. deportation policies, where it became one of the most feared street gangs in the hemisphere. The FTO designation puts MS-13 into the same legal framework as organizations with far larger financial operations, but the rationale is clear. The violence they commit, the territory they control, and the fear they generate qualify them under the expanded definition the Trump administration has applied to the term terrorist. The decision to designate these groups as terrorists marks a new chapter in the debate regarding whether some of Mexico's drug trafficking organizations bear enough resemblance to terrorist groups to be identified and treated as such for U.S. law enforcement and national security purposes. This expansion of the terrorist label has geopolitical implications. Argentina has labeled the CJNG as a terrorist organization, echoing similar designations made in the United States under President Donald Trump. Canada made similar designations that same month. The push to recategorize criminal groups as terrorist organizations comes as part of a larger shift in security policy across the Western Hemisphere, helmed in large part by Trump's hardline policies. As of mid-February 2026, the consequences of this new approach are playing out in real time. The U.S. military has conducted dozens of lethal maritime strikes against suspected trafficking vessels in the Caribbean and Pacific, reportedly killing at least 145 individuals since September 2025. The line between law enforcement and military operations has blurred. Cartels are being fought with tools previously reserved for groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Whether this approach dismantles or merely displaces these organizations is a question that 2026 has not yet answered. So what does the cartel landscape of 2026 actually tell us? The single clearest conclusion from every piece of available evidence is this: the trajectory from 2025 into 2026 indicates not the dismantling of cartel power, but its adaptation. Mexico's major criminal organizations now operate as decentralized, technologically adaptive hybrid actors, capable of mass casualty attacks, cross-border intimidation, and sustained coercive violence. The Sinaloa cartel has lost El Chapo, El Mayo, and multiple sons of El Chapo to arrest or extradition, and it still controls the largest share of Mexico's drug trade. The CJNG lost its founder and supreme leader to a military raid, and within weeks, a new leader was consolidated, and the organization demonstrated it could paralyze an entire country in retaliation. Despite arrests, seizures, and military interventions, cartels have adapted by decentralizing, diversifying into other illicit markets. Despite record-level drug seizures in both the United States and Mexico, evidence suggests these seizures reflect high production volumes intersecting with intensified enforcement, rather than durable contraction. Under pressure, cartels diversified into fuel theft, migrant smuggling, extortion, and other illicit markets. To stabilize revenues, they hardened logistics, intensified counter-surveillance, expanded corruption networks, and increasingly adopted asymmetric tactics: drones, IEDs, targeted assassinations, and heavy-caliber weaponry. To raise the costs of state intervention, the FTO designations have given U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies more tools. These designations provide law enforcement additional tools to stop these groups. Terrorist designations play a critical role in our fight against terrorism and are an effective way to curtail support for terrorist activities. But the organizations targeted by those designations have adapted to enforcement pressure for decades. Every time a leader is arrested, a new faction rises. Every time a trafficking route is shut down, a new one opens. Every time a lab is raided, 10 more are built in the mountains. The most dangerous cartels in 2026 are dangerous not because they are unchanging monoliths. They are dangerous because they are adaptive networks, organisms that lose a limb and grow another. The Sinaloa cartel is an empire at war with itself. The CJNG is an empire rebuilding under new management. Los Zetas' legacy lives on through the Cartel del Noreste. The Gulf Cartel endures in the northeast. Carteles Unidos and La Nueva Familia Michoacana hold Michoacán in a chokehold. Tren de Aragua is spreading across a continent, and MS-13 has been reborn under a new legal designation that may or may not change its trajectory. Synthetic drugs like fentanyl dominate global markets. Despite crackdowns and FTO designations, these groups remain resilient. Fragmentation often fuels more violence, making international monitoring and cooperation essential. The most dangerous cartels in 2026 are not just surviving. They are evolving, and the war against them is entering a phase that looks less like law enforcement and more like a conflict with no clear end in sight.